My name is Mike Garlia.
And I'm Steve Jones.
When Steps, the Backstreet Boys and Westlife dominated the pop charts, we decided to write a script.
Based on our experiences as holiday entertainers.
It's sat in an attic for the last 16 years. How terrible is the writing? How awful will the acting be?
Only you can help us decide.
This is Bad Scripts.
So, Mike, I suppose we should really explain what we're doing here and what this podcast is all about. Bad Scripts, ? So we wrote a script, must be 16 years ago now, around that time.
And change.
I don't know. We'll find that out and we'll pop that in the description. And it was a script written by us two, based on our experiences as entertainers, both in the UK and abroad. And we use that experience to guide us to deliver something that, I don't know, sounds implausible and impossible, but actually most of it's rooted in reality. Would you agree?
Actually, I can't remember what's in the script, so my memory says that a lot of things that we put in there did actually happen. So if anyone was there and is listening to this, we may have been inspired by you, and you will live on in infamy through this podcast. So congratulations. In terms of how this came about, I think we both just left. We were in Nottingham in your mum's house, and we decided to motivate ourselves by putting some pen to paper. And I think we wrote it, and then we put it in the attic, and we went and off and did some other things. And then very recently we discovered it again and realised how naive was we 16 years and change ago. And wouldn't it be fun just to record it for the first time? And that therein lies the title. It could be a bad script. It might be a good script. We don't know. It could be our acting. It might not be our acting. So I think that's up to you to decide.
Absolutely. And I think if anybody does remember us from that time and is listening to this and you associate with anybody and you're offended, it definitely wasn't about you.
Is that the line we're going with?
That's the line we're going to... Yeah.
We're going. So it definitely...
That's the official line.
Are we doing the... there is no... If there's any circumstances between people alive or not alive, then this is purely a coincidence. Is that the line we're doing right now?
Exactly. That's the disclaimer. That's what the lawyers are saying. So that's...
Fair enough. Then I shall stand to with that.
Fabulous. So, Mike, would you mind giving us a very brief overview of what The Last Resort is?
I just knew you were going to ask me that question. Yes, so The Last Resort is about an ailing holiday camp that's very 50s, 60s-esque that decides to go through a revival of sorts, and the 3-part 1-hour episodes basically looks at the entertainment team, a brand new entertainment team, and what they deal with on a day-to-day basis, how they interact with themselves, how they interact with the guests, what they do to entertain, and pretty much all the trouble they find themselves getting into. Would that be a fair summary based on the memory of us writing this? Or am I talking about real life?
I think there's a definite crossover, so that does feel very reminiscent of how we spent the turn of the millennium, but it definitely does sound like something that happens in this script. So what we're going to do, we're going to read through the script. It's the first time we've read it. It's been a long time since we've touched it, so we really don't know what's going to come of this, what's going to happen. We're going to take it in turns. We're going to pick characters. We might not even be able to pick the right ones, and some of us might have to do impressions of women badly and things like that, but we'll give it a go in the meantime. And we just hope you enjoy it, and I think we should crack on straight away.
I think I'm going to need a glass of wine for this, actually. You never told me we'd have to do accents and characters. Yeah, we'll do our best, of course, and we want to keep this quite natural and quite fluid, so we might break every so often, we might get confused about which characters we're playing, and I guess you as a listener, you may have to occasionally fill in the blanks around what's going and just use a little bit of that imagination to just kind of imagine where these characters are at that moment in time. But we'll do our best through the power of performance to articulate that to you.
Fantastic. Let's do the first scene. This is the prologue, I believe, and if you want to introduce it for us, Mike, and I'll be the narrator.
Yeah, this is I think this is a short scene. I think where the narrator is just setting up. I think they call it disposition for the audience, and it just basically sets the scene and sets the tone of the show. And I believe it starts quite early on in the 1950s, one of these old style kind of advertisement videos, you know, with the kind of posh BBC narrator. No pressure there, Steve.
Something you'd have seen. Something you'd have seen at the cinema. In between your double feature, probably. Yeah.
So, I mean, it might. I know we kind of agreed we weren't going to kind of bore people with stage direction, but I think given this is the start, I think this would be probably a good tone to set. So, I'll tell you what, I'll give some stage direction just to kind of set us off, and then you take it away, Steve.
Absolutely. Sounds good.
Okay, so the prologue then for Last Resort, Episode 1. Aged black and white footage of a holiday camp in the 1950s. During the advertisement video, there is a stiff English narration. Pan in on the entrance of the park.
It's another sunny day here on England's scenic coastline, but then every day's a sunny day here at Camp Holidays.
Footage cuts to a couple of camp coats striding happily towards the main gate. They wave at the camera.
Here are some of our friendly staff now, ensuring you get the best holiday from the moment you arrive.
Footage cuts to an outdoor pool with a couple sat relaxing. They smile and wave at the camera.
Oh look, there's Mum and Dad enjoying themselves over at our luxurious state-of-the-art outdoor swimming pool. But where are the children?
Mum and Dad look worried as the narrator says this. The footage cuts to a group of children marching with two camp coats. They have pans on their heads and are singing in the background is Willie the Walrus.
Ah, that's right. Our fully trained, friendly camp coats are entertaining them. See how much fun they're having?
All the children smile cheekily into the camera as they march past.
Our happy, friendly camp coats are here to ensure your children only have the finest time. No need for Mum and Dad to worry. They can sit back and while away the day.
A noise like an air raid siren begins and the camera cuts to an air tannoy system. Cuts back to Mum and Dad.
What's that sound? Ah, that means it's time for tea. And after spending all day building up an appetite, there's nothing more rewarding than dining in our luxurious, fully furnished restaurant.
Cut to the restaurant where everyone is eating, naturally.
Everyone is happy here at Camp Holiday Park.
Cut to a bar where all the men are in flat caps and drinking beer.
But the day doesn't end there, oh no! In the evening, Dad can relax in our exclusive gentleman's club, fully equipped with its own billiard table and dartboard.
Dad is stood holding a half-pint tanker, laughing with all the other dads. In the background are other men playing darts and dominoes. It has a smoky interior. Cut to outside where Mum is trying to enter. The narrator stops her and a sign comes up saying, Willie's Bar, men only.
I'm sorry, little lady, you can't come in here. But don't despair, there's a place for you and the children over at the Showtime Hall. Everyone is welcome, but what about those adolescents? Well, don't think we've forgotten about them.
Cuts to a small room with a record player and 5 or 6 couples jiving on the dance floor.
Why not join in with Willie's Rangers, where you can jive the night away to the latest rock and roll sounds? See, there's a place for everyone here at Camp Holidays.
Cut to the Showtime Hall where Mum looks at her watch.
Well, look at the time, it's 8 o'clock already. Time to put the tired little tykes to bed.
Cuts to the chalet rooms, which has a cot and double bunk beds.
And as you can see, our luxurious chalets are a home away from home.
Next day, it's the main gate and the family have their suitcases and are waiting to leave.
Unfortunately, all good things have to come to an end.
Mummy, I don't want to go home.
But darling, we have to. Daddy's at work tomorrow, and who will look after grandmother?
Don't despair, wife and children. We can come back next year.
Yes, that's right, Dad. Now you can book for next year, and with our discount stamps, you'll save even more.
Kids and adults cheer.
See New Year next year, here at Camp Holidays.
At the main gate, there is Willie the Walrus and the camp coast all waving happily as the family leave. There is a TV power down. Cut. Okay, there is lots to talk about there,
Wow.
isn't there? Okay, so the first, the obvious thing I need to call out, right, is some of the language we've used. Camp coats and the mascot and venue's called Willie. What was going on there?
Well, I think it refers to somebody we knew and worked with at the time, and it was more of it was an homage to that gentleman, I think, in so much as using the name. And I think it's just one of those silly names, isn't it? That sounds like in the 50s it would have been something really normal, but then sounded a little bit cheeky and maybe a little bit rude in the 90s when this was supposedly set. So
I think it still sounds that way now, and it's quite interesting actually that, I mean, we were in our early 20s when we wrote this, but it's quite interesting. I suppose the unequal and unbalanced nature of the way the narrator refers to the mum and dad and the children.
absolutely, and I think that was intentional, really. I think this is very much a parody of the sort of thing, and it's poking fun at the misogyny and the old-fashioned ways, I think, to create a bit of a juxtaposition between what was and what is to come. So we're setting that scene a little bit, I think, in that sense.
Yeah,
Hopefully.
Yeah, I think I speak for both of us, Steve. I haven't read this for that length of time. This is the first time I've heard it. Hearing you do that narrator, I was really trying to hold that together then, actually. But there is some, but there is a theme running through this, isn't there? You know, God, I hope we don't get sued with camp coats. But we must have laughed at the time, but I can't remember writing it. So
Yeah. One thing I need to call out is that I did the mum as quite posh and you had a working class dad. So maybe there's some sort of divide they crossed there when they...
Well, I think that's the way I hear it, kind of 1950s Coleman, that everyone gets the same week off, everybody goes to the British holiday, and I think that was definitely the pitch we were going through, and I think that resonates with a lot of people, because that was quite the norm, that a lot of families, a lot of neighbours, a lot of communities would all take holidays together, and that was the kind of explosion of the British holiday, really, wasn't it?
Absolutely, and whole towns would just get on the train and disappear for a week or 2 weeks to the seaside, and then spend their whole holiday with people they knew, and then travel all the way back to where they lived, and then work with those people as well.
Well, yeah,
so, yeah, it's a real.
So do I. I mean, and I think that tradition kind of lives on. I mean, you go to most coastal towns, there's some kind of holiday park. You know, some are more upmarket, some are less so, but the theme was always there, wasn't it? That there wasn't these big holidays going abroad. And remember, this is based in the 50s. This is based before there was the explosion of kind of tourism, especially into Spain and stuff, which kind of came in the kind of mid to late 60s and 70s. So I think we were trying to capture a flavour of this was the pinnacle and highlight of a family's year.
And I don't know about you, but it very much felt like that was an opinion people still had of these places in the 90s and the noughties. They still had a view that these places were very much stuck in the 50s, stuck in the high years, you know. And I think what we wanted to show with this, if I remember rightly, you know, is this is everybody's image of what a British holiday camp looks like. And I think we wanted to not necessarily dispel that, but show how things had evolved and matured, and that wasn't the case so much anymore, and almost justify what we did as being bona fide performers and entertainers, and not just some sort of silly seaside one-trick pony.
Totally. Are you giving away a lot of spoilers there for what's to come, actually? So do you think we've covered that prologue enough? What do you think? I mean, do you have a view on that? Did that kind of spark some thoughts in your mind? And if it is anything, as Steve said, on I can't even say that word, of
misogyny.
Thank you. If it is that's why he's here. I think I would definitely 100% say that was absolutely the theme we were going for, to show that absurdity, that was just the culture back then. You know, for us to open that juxtaposition into where we're going, which is the late 90s.
And that's it. So I think at this point then we move on to our next scene.
I think so. Here we are with our next scene. And Steve, you're gonna kind of give us an introduction and tell us what's going on here.
Yeah, so after the last scene, we basically see that the image from the end of that scene is now on a TV in a boardroom at present day, and the TV's turned off with a remote control. There's a long table with aging executives sat around it. So, can anyone see the problem here? Is this still working?
Yeah.
Really? So there's no room for improvement?
Well, why fix something that's not broken? 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 We've been offering the same shite for the last 50 years, and you think nothing's broken. Well, have a look at this.
So Alan presses play on the TV, and it turns on. The footage is of the same holiday park today. It's very old-fashioned, it's been neglected over the years. It needs a hell of a facelift. And at the end, we pan to Alan.
This season, we've had an all-time record low in attendance. Not only are we struggling with customers, we can't even get the staff. Health and safety are all over our arses. People don't want Heidi flaming high anymore. We're the laughing stock of the industry. Tell me this. Where did you take the wife and kids on holiday?
We like Spain. Florida's nice.
Exactly. You take them abroad. Why don't you bring them here, eh? Why don't you bring them to camp? It'll be a lot cheaper than bloody Florida, and you can take full advantage of a staff discount. Well, I'll tell you why. We're stuck in the bloody 50s. Teenagers don't want rock and roll anymore. They want to smoke, get pissed, and listen to loud music. And kids, they don't want to meet Willie the bloody walrus. They don't even know what a fucking walrus is. We need a change.
Kevin is walking around the table handing out presentations to the members.
In front of you is the way forward. Kevin.
Gentlemen, we've been working for the last few months trying to find a way to better our product. As you can see here, for some time we were the leading holiday park in Europe. But as you all know, with pressure of modernisation and a change in the average family holiday, people began to travel abroad and...
And who wants to go abroad? Sorry, Kevin. Who wants to have some Spanish waiter called Pedro slobbering all over your bloody wife, telling her how beautiful she is? Or have to sit on the cardi for a week because of some spicy kebab that burns more coming out than it did going in? People don't go abroad because they want to. They go because everybody else goes. Now, if they had an incentive, a reason to stay at home, then they would.
Why bother? All our other ventures are doing extremely well. The lap dancing clubs are a huge success, and sales of our adult magazines are quite literally going through the roof. This company was built from camp holidays. Without that, none of this would be here today. We owe it to the public to give it one last go.
Exactly. And I give you the future in British holidays.
Alan, while saying this, lifts up a board. Everyone gathers around it, enabling the audience to see it. The executives all begin to clap politely. Okay, so quite a bit to discuss there.
Yeah. Take us away then.
I think what we were trying to get there was the kind of a mix of people in there, but it was the stereotypical boardroom scene with flaughty, haughty-taughty board members who, you've got your yes men and you've got your stuck in the ways, this is how it's always been kind of guys. But somebody's got an idea, somebody's got a thing that may just revitalise this business. I think we didn't know where to go in terms of location on this one. Would we say they'd probably be sat in a boardroom in London somewhere, picking up their executive checks?
I think they'll probably be somewhere quite swish. I've got an image of them in their expensive suits and stuff like that, and these executives just don't care, do they? It is interesting though, our take on Spain. Are we going to talk about this?
I think the elephant in the room needs to be discussed. Absolutely. Let me just go back over some of the words that were used here. Have some Spanish waiter called Pedro slobbering all over your bloody wife, telling her how beautiful she is. Let's start with that one.
So, I was just in the entire time you've been to Spain, has that ever happened to you?
well, I wouldn't like to say, but and it wasn't Spain, it was Greece, and his name was Stavros. But no, I am kidding. I love Stavros. He was a very nice guy, and he came on to me, not my wife.
Brilliant.
No, I think we knew, and I don't think we're being. I think we're being a bit ironic here, and this is very much what the character's saying, and not what we're saying. We've got this very brash board member who speaks his mind, speaks in stereotypes, deals in absolutes, and who wants to bloody go here and bloody do this? And he's very forthright Yorkshireman. I think he's got that very kind of. I say it as it is, and I speak as I find, and you know.
Crikey, I wasn't even going for Yorkshire. I was going for a kind of posh, kind of Midlands area. Did that come across as Yorkshire?
I'm not sure. I think it was more his persona that gave me that image rather than his accent. So, and I'd just like to give all the listeners out there a little warning that accents may fluctuate and vary during this performance. Please do not take offence if you don't know who any character is. Neither do we.
It's true, but it's so weird because it doesn't feel like our words because it was so long ago. So it's funny reading it now, and it's hard to get a sense of whether. I suppose this seems very clear on what we're getting at. So it's juxtaposition. It is moving from one element to another, and that's what we were trying to get on to move the story along. I think we said, and if I remember rightly, we had a conversation. Said by at least scene 3 or scene 4, we need to have introduced everything that needs to happen. So we've got to move it along quite quickly. So that boardroom scene was just a really quick way to do it, a really effective way. But I mean, in real life, do we really think board members would actually act like that? And be so closed off to any kind of reformation, and not one person mentions money or cost. Like, how much is this going to cost to reform this camp? Like that's a bit of naivety there, actually.
Well, maybe, but maybe that's boring. That's not what we're there to talk about. We wanted to get to the punchy bit because there's a scene that we're probably not going to actually record. It's literally 2 lines. It's the executives leaving the meeting next. And they're congratulating Kevin and Alan on what they've done, saying, you know, do you think it'll work? And well, we'll just have to wait and see. So I think the suggestion is we dip into that meeting and we leave before they get to talking about the money side of things and where that's going to come from, because people don't really care. The audience don't really care, or I don't really care where that comes from in terms of this performance. I think it's more about, okay, it's happening, and this is where the seed that this all grew from came from. So
I love it. So one last question I've got, actually, and that is the swearing, right? Was the swearing there for impact, or did we just put it in there because we felt like doing it?
This is where my sort of brash northerner came in, and as a man who's lived all over the UK, I think wasn't in an offensive way. This guy speaks his mind, so I think he would swear. We put it in there because it has impact. You don't always hear that kind of language in a boardroom, but this guy shows that he's in charge because he's using that kind of language, and nobody bats an eyelid at him using that language. And I think that still resonates today. I think for me, if you get somebody like that in a room, you know they're there, and you know they know what they're talking about, or at least they believe they know what they're talking about.
I should also say as well that this is not a recurring character, so this I almost want to write a spin-off now with this Alan and Kevin and see what they do. What do you think? Should we write a prequel here on how they got to this place? But I mean, look, there's a thread of truth through the scene, because that's exactly what happened. Certainly, in the mid-90s, there was this kind of theme that the British holiday was run down, it was done, the industry was dead, and then there was a little bit of a resurgence. The upmarket started to appear. I think there was this theme of a resurgence of sorts, which started to attract a certain kind of person that wanted to see that back again, and this is kind of setting that up. So whilst it was a fake scene and there was no truth to it whatsoever, there is a thread of truth in terms of what actually happened towards the kind of, I would say, probably between 1998 onwards. Yeah, so we are now jumping forward to a whole 5 months later, which was the auditions. And if you can imagine this, it still features Kevin and Alan, and they're just getting ready to start auditioning their new cast members and their new and improved version of the camp coats. And as the camera kind of pans out, it goes through a window, and you can just see across the street, as far as the eye can see, just hundreds of people, hundreds of wannabe performers, all lining the streets, all excited. Just imagine what the Talent ITV show became. If you can imagine that, that's kind of what we were doing there. That's with that. So yeah, and written before that all that stuff existed. So take it away, Steve.
Well, here we are at the start of what's going to be history in the making.
What we're looking for is the best of the best. I'm talking about the best singers, the best dancers. If they're not good enough for the West End, they are not good enough for camp. Not only do I want talent, I want them to have drive. They need to be put through the toughest auditions known to man, so that only the strongest survive. Any questions?
All three of them shake their head.
Good.
Okay, send them in. So that's.
I think that actually says raising a radio to his mouth. Is that really going to be your DJ send them in voice, Steve? I think you probably need to take another pass on that one. I think you need to bring a bit more to that, actually.
Okay, send them in. Is that better for you? Does that sound more like a man
bigger.
On his radio?
I think you need to go bigger.
Okay, send them in. Bearing in mind he's a board member, so he's not really au fait with radios, I'd imagine. That.
Yeah, but I've got to take it from the script, and it says, "Okay, send ... them in."
Okay, send.
I'm not giving you. Sorry, I'm not giving. I'm not giving you direction, or maybe I am.
Maybe.
Go on, give us something a little bit bigger. Come on, you're just about to bring hundreds of people in to an audition room.
I'm raising the radio to my mouth. Okay, send them in.
Fair enough.
Oh dear. So that was a very short scene, but I think when you talk about the queues outside of the venue, we actually experienced that in London, didn't we? When we were our second year as the performers, we went down as ambassadors, I think the term is, dressed up in lots of silly costumes, did some really, really daft things.
But I believe it was the Hippodrome on Piccadilly Circus, so it doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
so
that's okay then. So yeah, we literally had people lining Leicester Square, queuing up to get these jobs. So they were that popular. We don't want to make it sound like we're overstating it. It genuinely was the job to have at the time. So we wanted to sort of, I think, try and purvey that in the script there a little bit and get across the level and scale of stuff. Where it moved on from where that 50s little camp to this is a big, we're talking West End, we're talking high production values and stuff. So that's
and Steve, how were you during the first opening show that we all performed? I mean, how were you in that show there?
I thought we'd said we weren't going to discuss this. I was, I believe, were dressed up as some famous lycra-clad superhero type characters.
That kind of sounds like Spower Mangers.
Spower Mangers, yes, and I believe I was the
Spower
Red
Mangers.
Spower Manger. We'd learnt the choreography for this the night before, and I believe it was being shown live on breakfast television on terrestrial TV. So this is back in the day before Freeview. So you had a few channels. Everybody's watching breakfast television. And we, at 10 o'clock the night before, start learning a dance routine wearing these big helmets and leotards, basically. And we stood in the wings waiting to go on. You can't hear a lot in these helmets that we were wearing. And so I turned to you, I believe, Mike, and said, "Let me know when it's time to go on." And you said... What did you say?
Yes, I'll tell you. What I said was, yes, I'll tell you now. And you turned to me and went, now. And I went, yes, now. And you went running onto the stage while there was a whole other act on, and then stood there holding a pose for the entirety of that show.
It may have been 30 seconds, but it felt like 30 minutes stood on my own with my hands on my hips. And I think I styled it out. But yeah, it wasn't my finest moment, but it's given us laughs every time we've thought about it since. But nobody will ever know that wasn't meant to happen. So I guess that's why we can laugh at it now when we think back.
Yes, so just imagine a ballroom scene with lots of people doing some really good ballroom dancing, and a red lycra character with a helmet just stood right in the middle holding a pose. So there you go, the magic of theatre. So I think we're moving quite quickly onto the audition phase. There's not much a lot to say about that scene, to be honest with you, but I think we're moving into the audition phases now, which is going to be really hard to reenact through the hearing medium. So we'll do our best.
Yeah, we'll do our best to describe that. Shall we move straight on to the next scene then in this?
Yeah, let's go for it. So this scene is the Interior Nightclub, and it's the dance floor.
So there's a room full of people, and there's a table at the front, and this reminds me very much of sort of like you said, those talent shows. You've got judges sat at the front, Judy, Wayne and Mark, and I'll start as Mark stands up. Firstly, can I say thank you for coming here today. I'm Mark Stevens, and I'm the entertainments manager for Camp Holidays. To my right is Wayne Thompson, deputy ents manager, and to my left is the head of production, Judy Crow. On behalf of my staff and I, have a nice day and good luck to you all. Judy? Come on, this is your first time as a woman.
Right. The first thing you need to do is split into groups of 5. Okay then. I'm going to run through a few basic steps. Please pay attention, as you will be expected to repeat it in your groups. Terrible lady.
So then everybody starts doing a very complex routine, and there's different levels of capability, I think, amongst the dancers as they're trying to learn this dance, and it's really, really fast for anybody to pick up, but I think it's a little bit, I think we're suggesting she's showing off maybe a little bit with her dancing prowess and her choreography at this point.
Okay, can I have this group first? She points to the nearest group.
And the group are all stood there completely in shock at what they've just seen. So that's
another short and sweet scene there, yeah. I don't know, is there much to say about that?
Not really, other than, I mean, I think we get a little bit more of a taste for Judy than we do of anybody else there. She sounds a little bit...
Well, there is Wayne.
Wayne's just sat there being quiet, not really doing anything. He's, I think we'll perhaps learn more about Wayne going forward, but yeah, Mark's introduced himself, nothing too scary in that, and it doesn't seem to be giving away a lot at the moment, and I'm really, really, really can't remember
why does Mark introduce both him and Judy with their full names, though? Why does he do that?
I suppose because you're talking to a room full of people at an audition quite formally, you perhaps say, I'm so-and-so, and I do this job, and...
How bored do you think they'll get after doing that for the the seemingly thousands of people that are all waiting outside for an opportunity? Do you think they audition everybody that's outside, like a kind of like the talent shows do today, or do you think they just selected certain people?
Well, as far as I could tell, everybody that came through the door had to be interviewed and had to be. So they did it in massive groups. You got people going around. And they had it was almost like a production line where go off here and sing with this person, go off here and dance with this person, then have a chat with someone else over here, and and I seem to remember with our particular colour jackets on, we were milling around chatting to people in the queue and being offered all sorts.
I was
of
only
bribes.
there I was only there to meet girls. That's the only reason.
That's the only reason you were in that job in the first place.
Didn't serve me particularly well. But there you go. Look, if you're listening to this and this rings a bell with you, you've been to one of those auditions, I think you can resonate with it. It's a mix of confidence, being in the right position, picking up the right kind of thing, and really putting yourself out there and being noticed. That's really a lot of it is down to luck as well. Because I've known people that have got through auditions and then they get it and then they're not that good, and you wonder, how did you get past the audition? It was just a mixture of just having the right moment in time,
Absolutely.
And for anyone going to auditions, yeah. I think you'll resonate with that. It just works for you or it doesn't.
It does, and huge boobs help as well. I think that's...
Did you just say that?
Obviously I don't mean that, but there may have been unscrupulous characters that are hiring, and maybe at the time... in a less woke
endorse
age
that whatsoever.
Might have partaken in that kind of behaviour. But obviously, we do not in any way endorse that kind of behaviour, and it should purely be based on talent.
This was strange that you said it, but I don't think that was Judy's motivation in the actual scene.
We don't know.
But you never know.
We don't know
you
about
never
Judy.
know.
That might have been her thing. You never know.
True. Well, there you go. So that is the first few scenes of episode 1 of Last Resort. We have quite a few more to go. Steve, is there anything you want to kind of summarise with before we close this?
Well, I just want to say, if anybody wants to hear more, great, let us know. Drop us an email or a message on Twitter. We'll put the handle in the description. And if you've had any experience with this or anything similar, we'd love to hear your stories too. I'd be happy to share some of your experiences if they mirror what we got up to, or if there's anything different, any stories you've got from an audition process or holiday you had as a kid maybe. So I'd just love to hear some of that and see how that marries up.
Now, but before we do close off, let's give a little bit of taster of things to come. We have the audition process where you're going to actually meet the main characters and maybe a few crazy ones along the way. And then it does flash forward into the actual inner workings of Camp Holidays, where we get to know our characters a little bit better. Our main characters, the ones that kind of take us through the series. Young, dynamic individuals from all ranges of backgrounds.
Yeah, and I think the funny thing is here, we've done a good time chatting away to people here, and we've not actually met our main characters yet. I think Judy and Mark are the only recurring characters that we've really had any major introduction to so far. So our main protagonists haven't really appeared on the scene yet.
Very cinematic, I must admit. So the question to end with: was it a bad script so far? Or are we reserving that right until we've heard it in its entirety? Which, by the way, at the end of this, once we've recorded it all, we will piece together the whole thing from start to finish, if there is, of course, an appetite for it. Don't judge our acting, judge the words.
That's episode 1 done for now. Thanks to my cohort, Mr. Mike Arlier, for joining me. I've been Steve Jones. Make sure you join us next time on Bad Scripts. Bad Scripts was written and performed by Mike Arlier and Steve Jones, a Beach Tide production.